celebrities are the purest form of the original human brand, right? Basically, that is how we all got wired. We are wired by evolution to have these perceptions and interactions with other people and decide whether we think they are trustworthy or not.
Welcome to Celebrity Focus Insiders with your host, Rick Backrack.
Hey, good day, everyone. Our guest today is Chris Malone, who just happens to be a longtime friend and business partner. I say that in the greatest client sense. We've worked together on so many different things. Chris is the chairman and founder of Fidelum Partners, a consultancy really expert in everything branding, marketing related. He formerly was the chief growth and strategy officer at Goddard Systems, was the CMO at Choice Hotels, and has been a senior marketing executive at places like ARAMARK, Coca Cola, Leaf, NHLPA, the NBA. He was also co-founder with Sergio Zeman of the Zeman Group. And interestingly, Chris is a co-author of a fantastic book called The Human Brand. We are going to talk about that today. He has a unique perspective, both as a very talented brand leader, but also as talent, because now he's a public speaker as well as a consultant. Chris, we're going to dive right into this. You've used a lot of celebrities throughout the years in a variety of ways. Why does it make sense for brands to align with talent?
Well, one of the really important reasons it's important for brands to use talent and how they can help is that many brands, don't have a human face on them. There's so much that we are all bombarded with in terms of information every day. Many services are provided remotely now, particularly as our world has become more digital. And it turns out that, what we know or what we believe we know about the people at the companies and brands we work with has a big impact on our loyalty and trust of them. And so to introduce a familiar face, someone that we know and recognize, it's a little bit like finding out that you and I have a friend in common. It creates some common ground. It creates more openness. It creates more trust. And, that celebrity, if has a very favorable reputation and image, it can really soften the ground, if you will, for a marketing message. And so I found it to be very helpful in a variety of different contexts. I've had the opportunity to work with celebrities both in sports and entertainment and consumer products and a variety of other services. And it always is something that is valuable in terms of the addition that it creates.
So, we always, most often we always think about the really visible stuff, right? Ad campaigns, PR programs, things like that. But there's a lot more talent use well beyond that. You did a program for a couple of years while you were at the Goddard schools. You were essentially the chief marketing officer at the Goddard schools. And you did an employee engagement campaign, started in 2020 for National Teacher Appreciation Week. Why did you go that direction with that campaign? What was it all about? What happened before it and how did it end up?
Yeah, it was a really remarkable time for all of us around the world. It was in the throes of COVID. Our preschools had closed for a good 2 months, depending on what part of the country you were in. A lot of people lost their jobs, and we had reopened and wanted to get people back to work. And Teacher Appreciation Week is the first week of May every year. And so, these teachers that are providing, early childhood development care are on the front lines dealing with all kinds of COVID restrictions and young children and all kinds of social distancing activities. And it was really tough work for them. And we wanted to find a way to thank and appreciate and support and inspire and motivate them and recognize them, frankly, for all the great things that they do and the lasting difference they really make in the lives of children. And we struggled with a way to do that in a way that would be relevant to everyone. We had done a similar idea for employees within Goddard and for franchisees, where it was executives from our team, but our executive team wouldn't have been known very well by the frontline teachers. And so we wanted to do something to make them feel special and show them how much we cared. And fortunately, working with you and your team, we were able to, in a very short order, recruit something like 20 different celebrities to record personalized thanks and appreciation messages for our teachers that we were able to share with them at the outset of Teacher Appreciation Week. And the response and engagement that we got from them was really off the charts. It really let them know that they were special. There was a celebrity in there for everyone, something everyone could appreciate. And it had a level of significance, importance, of value, if you will, that we had taken the time to recruit celebrities to thank them. I think that felt like a very personalized, very inspiring, and encouraging, message for them.
And for the sake of the viewer and people who may not be familiar with Goddard schools, Goddard has hundreds and hundreds of schools all over the United States. We're talking about teachers, roughly 10,000 teachers that this was done for. So this was not just, oh, we want to reach out to a dozen teachers. And these messages were incredibly impactful. Chris, you were the CMO at Choice Hotels, and Choice, Choice did some of the most wonderful advertising for years, with the celebrities popping up out of suitcases. What was that all about? How did it impact the brand? Not just the brand, the brands plural, because again, Choice Hotels represents a lot of different brands. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And Choice Hotels is a portfolio of brands that includes Quality Inn, Comfort Inn, Sleep Inn, a variety of others. And the advertising campaign that you mentioned, it really become a fixture and a real differentiator. And in the hotel business, there are such a large number of brands. It's difficult to kind of cut through and have something that's truly memorable. And having someone pop out of a suitcase for the first time, certainly caught people by surprise. But then it became something that people would look forward to, anticipate, waiting to see who was going to be the next person or celebrity to kind of pop out of the suitcase. And so it was another one of those instances where to see someone familiar that's bringing some credibility, some authenticity, some recognition to Choice Hotels really helps elevate your brand. And in that regard, it's one of the values that celebrities can bring. It's something that a small business can't obviously engage in. And so the more that you can have a celebrity involved, kind of elevates the credibility and visibility of your brand, but also to introduce familiar faces that people have favorable views of. Some of that rubs off on your brand and was very effective for Choice Hotels. And we found a lot of value in it.
We're going to take a quick break in just a moment. We've got lots more to talk about with Chris. We're going to dive into a book that he co-authored called The Human Brand. We're going to talk about how that affects the celebrity world as well as the brand world, and also what it's all about. We'll be back after these brief messages.
I want to personally thank all the teachers out there, especially at the Goddard School.
A special message of love and appreciation.
It's all about giving kids the best chance to succeed, not just in the classroom, but in life. We are Goddard because we believe that education has the power to make the world a better place. The Goddard school system helps families develop happy, healthy, and successful kids.
So we got to see a few examples of some of the work. And, the second piece we saw there was with Roy Firestone. And that was not a public piece. That was something that we had done, I think, a short video that was done for investors. Is that right?
It was a corporate overview video. I think it was used at a speaking event to introduce the audience to Goddard Systems and the Goddard schools.
So, you and Susan Fiske co-authored the book, The Human Brand. I've read it and obviously just love the book. Tell our viewers about what the human brand is all about, what the premise is, and what you learned from the research you did. Sure.
So, as you mentioned earlier, I've had the opportunity to work with brands that are products, consumer products at Procter Gamble and Coca Cola and other places like that. But I also had the opportunity to work in professional sports where I was literally marketing athletes as brands as well. And so through that experience, I kind of always intuitively had the belief that probably people were the first brands and faces were the first logos, and that the branded trade and commerce that we engage in is probably some kind of an adaptation of the way that we interact with one another. but I had never really seen anything that kind of supported or proved or provided evidence for that. And so it was about 2009 that I stumbled across Dr. Susan Fist's work on what is called now the warmth and competence model. And it turns out there is this kind of universal human social perception process that guides how all of us perceive, interact, and form relationships with one another. And it was at that point that I had kind of an aha moment. I said, wow, that's very interesting. If that is true, that there is this universal way that we form relationships with one another, how could it not also be affecting the choices that we make in commerce, where we choose to work, what we choose to buy, what we become loyal to? And so we basically spent a few years conducting research, applying Dr. Fist's warmth and competence model to how patients and customers and employees perceive companies and brands that they interact with, and found that exactly the same thing, that our purchase and loyalty and behavior towards companies and brands is very much driven by all of these things. And it makes perfect sense if you think about it. Commerce between people for thousands of years has been conducted face to face. That's where we pick up all of this warmth and competence information. And it simply validated that, every human is a brand and every brand is human, that the way we interact and form trust and loyalty with them is exactly the same. And so in our book, we talk about lots of different examples of how that is proven to be true. And now even in the digital age, it's even more true that it's that same warmth and competence that drives our behavior. It's just turbocharged by digital technology now.
And your work crosses over, as you mentioned. You started in the business at Procter Gamble. You also wound your way into a variety of different places at Leaf, at NHLPA, at the NBA. You integrated your experiences with both people and brands. How does this work? If you apply the same models to celebrities, are celebrities brands in the same sense? Are the behavior patterns the same? Talk about that a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, celebrities are the purest form of the original human brand, right? Basically, that is how we all got wired. We are wired by evolution to have these perceptions and interactions with other people and decide whether we think they are trustworthy or not. And so in that regard, everything that a celebrity does, their reputation, the things that they appear in, what they become known for, is, we are judging whether we feel comfortable and trust and commitment or loyalty to them. And so in that regard, it's directly on point for how they manage their career, what projects they get involved in, what brands they associate with. And it's really only later. I mean, the concept of a commercial brand has really only been around for a few hundred years. It started, of course, with kind of branding a cattle or putting a maker's mark on some product or what have you. But really kind of the current notion of brand management has really only been around for the last few hundred years. And we've simply glommed onto that a little bit. But I think the purest form of the logical way that it's helpful often for me to think about it is, how did people interact 200, 300 years ago? It was all face to face, and all of that, information that we used to pick up firsthand still applies, but now we're receiving much, much more of that remotely. We may not ever meet any of these people individually. So whatever we come in contact with is informing and updating our perceptions and our attitude and our loyalty to those folks.
So we've scratched the surface, Chris, but I do want you to dive just a little bit deeper into explaining the two concepts of warmth and competence and how that relates to a consumer's perspective, whether that be with people or with brands.
Sure. I'll try to give you the short version. But if we go back kind of tens of thousands of years and think about primitive humans in the original game of Survivor, for survival purposes, they had to make and learn how to make two kinds of decisions very quickly and very accurately whenever they interacted with another person. And the first thing that our brains are wired to do, and we do this subconsciously, we're not even aware of it, is that we're trying to determine what are the intentions of this person towards me. Are they a friend or a foe? Are they going to help me or hurt me? Give something to me or take something from me? Or said another way, what degree of warmth can I pick up about their intentions toward me? And then, given what we think their intentions might be, then what ability do they have to carry out those intentions? Are they strong or weak, fast or slow, foolish or intelligent? Or what degree of competence do they have? And you can think of these as two broad categories of perceptions related to intention and perceptions related to abilities. And they include, everything that we might perceive. Are they honest? Are they trustworthy? Are they friendly? Are they sociable? Are they competent, capable, skilled, effective, and so on. And it turns out that these two types of perceptions actually trigger a predictable pattern of emotions, and it's the emotions that actually cause our behavior. And so this has been shown through social psychology to drive over 80% of human behavior. And it turns out that not only in social behavior, but also in our commercial behavior as well. And so from a celebrity standpoint, whether we realize it or not, we are making these judgments of celebrities based on what we see of them, information received about them, things that other people say about them. All is informing our warmth and confidence perceptions and attitude and behavior towards them.
Earlier in your career, you were at Coca Cola. You worked with Sergio Zeman. I won't ask you, legend or myth, I don't know. I'm sure, you thought very highly of Sergio. Sergio probably still do. What did you learn from those experiences, not just at Coca Cola, but earlier in your career at Leaf and NHLPA and the NBA? What did you learn at those places that you've taken now as your career's grown and you've grown into the senior most marketing positions? What did you take out of those?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I would say that from my earlier experiences in my career, kind of my Procter and Gamble, NBA, NHL, Leaf North America, I came up through marketing roles, and I think that you're learning along the way, and things are taught to you and so forth. But you're in many cases you are trying to replicate things that you've seen done around you, right? This is the way it's done to promote or advertise or position or what have you. And that is certainly very helpful. And you're able to kind of try to build on things that you've seen other people do. I think where the real change for me came at Coca Cola, where for the first time I had the opportunity to get exposed to fairly sophisticated market research and consumer insight that I had never really been exposed to in my part of the career previously. And I found that I actually had a pretty deep interest and aptitude for it. And that was the point at which I became a much more data-driven marketer, a much greater student of human behavior and human psychology. And all of the work that we've done on the human brand and with Dr. Fisk and even in the work that we do now is very data-driven. And as much as you'd say kind of human behavior and consumer psychology seems to be less of a hard science, it can actually be quantified. And so I feel like that has been what I have learned is how to, particularly in a world now that we're awash in data and ways to communicate, how we kind of make sense of all of that to build stronger relationships and build more effective programs for brands.
What advice would you offer to brand leaders? This show obviously is about connecting famous people with famous brands, and you bring a very rich field of additional thinking, and you've been on every side of it. What's some advice that you'd offer to other brand marketers who are considering using celebrities? What would you share with them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I think this is true of marketing of all kinds and brands of all kinds. And if I had to kind of boil it down into maybe one or two things. First, I would say it all comes down to relationships. There are businesses that are a little bit more transactional. Someplace you drive through a fast, food window or what have you, that may seem very transactional. But it turns out that all of our business and all of our choices are really driven by the strength of the relationships and the trust and loyalty we have for other people. And so that's, whether it's who you choose to work with, what you choose to buy from, all of the work you do in marketing and trying to build a brand should be based on building lasting relationships, because it turns out that even in the transactional businesses, relationships make a big difference. And then the second thing that I would add to that is the key to building relationships is what we call the principle of worthy intentions, which is the idea that I am willing to put the best interests of the other person first in the short term in order to receive more trust and loyalty back from them in the long term. And what we're trying to do is to demonstrate that our intentions towards them are worthy of their trust and their loyalty and their commitment. And so those are kind of foundational things that, I wasn't taught in college or in the big companies or what have you, but things that we've learned from experience and applying these insights in a variety of different contexts. That it really all comes down to relationships, and worthy intentions are really the key to success.
Chris, you've been a great guest today. Appreciate you being here so much. If people want to reach out to you, we can direct them to you through LinkedIn or through Celebrity Focus. And as we mentioned, you are a very capable speaker speaking about the human brand. For the rest of you, we hope you'll watch us again next week. We've got great guests coming up. go ahead and check somewhere out on this screen here. You'll see a button that says subscribe. Click on that button. Check out celebrityfocus.com and you can subscribe for our newsletter. But we hope to see you all again soon. Chris, looking forward to the next time we can do this. Thanks so much for being here.
Glad to have you and glad to be here.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Celebrity Focus Insiders, connecting famous people with famous brands. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date and check out our past episodes at celebrityfocus.com.